Have you ever wondered what happens to the bodies of death row inmates after their execution? Well, in today's special episode, we will look at 3 cases where the remains of notorious criminals were handled in various ways. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942. He grew up in Norwood Park Township near Chicago. Gacy committed his first known murder in 1972. He was known for performing as a clown at local events. Gacy lured his victims to his home. He often used the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. He would then rape, torture, and kill them. Gacy married Marlyn Myers in 1964. Her father bought 3 KFC restaurants in Waterloo, Iowa, and Gacy moved there to manage them. Gacy opened a club in his basement where his employees could drink and play pool. He socialized only with the males and often gave them alcohol before making sexual advances. In 1966, Gacy's wife gave birth to a son, and in 1967 to a daughter. Gacy described this period as perfect because he finally earned his father's approval. In 1968, Voorhees reported Gacy's assault to the police. Gacy was arrested and charged with sodomy and attempted assault. He denied the charges and claimed they were politically motivated. Gacy was indicted on the sodomy charge in May 1968. He promised one of his employees $300 to assault Voorhees to discourage him from testifying. The employee was arrested and confessed, leading to Gacy's arrest. Gacy was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. The doctors concluded he had an antisocial personality disorder and was mentally competent to stand trial. Gacy pleaded guilty to sodomy and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. His wife divorced him, and he never saw his first wife or children again. In prison, Gacy became a model prisoner. He became head cook, joined the Inmate JC chapter, and improved conditions for inmates. Gacy was released on parole in June 1970 after serving only 18 months of a 10-year sentence. He moved to Chicago to live with his mother and quickly found work as a short-order cook. In February 1971, he faced accusations of sexually assaulting a teenage boy. The charges were dropped when the boy failed to appear in court. In June 1971, he was arrested again for similar charges, but these charges were also dropped after the youth who accused him attempted to blackmail him. The Iowa Board of Parole did not learn of these incidents, and Gacy's parole ended in October 1971. In 1972, Gacy committed his first known murder. He picked up 16-year-old Timothy McCoy from a bus station, took him home, and later killed him in what Gacy claimed was self-defense. He buried McCoy in his crawl space. Over the next few years, Gacy continued to lure young men to his house under various pretenses. He often offered them jobs or promised them money for sex. Once at his house, Gacy would restrain them, torture them, and eventually kill them, usually by strangulation. By 1975, Gacy's killing spree had intensified. He murdered 18-year-old John Butkovich after luring him to his house under the guise of discussing overdue wages. Gacy buried Butkovich's body in his garage. From 1976 to 1978, Gacy murdered numerous young men and boys, often burying them in the crawlspace of his house. His victims included people he knew and random individuals he lured from bus stations or off the streets. Gacy's typical method was to gain their trust, restrain them with handcuffs, and then torture and kill them. Gacy's murderous activities escalated, leading to the discovery of his gruesome acts in December 1978, when police uncovered the remains of his victims, bringing his reign of terror to an end. Gacy was a diagnosed psychopath who showed no remorse for his crimes. Before his execution, he told his lawyer that killing him would not bring back his victims, and that the state was murdering him. His final spoken words were reported to be, "Kiss my a." Prosecutor William Kunkel stated in 2020 that these words were directed at a prison official and were not part of an official statement. After his death at 12:58 a.m. on May 10, 1994, Gacy's brain was removed. It is held by Helen Morrison, who has studied Gacy and other serial killers to find common traits. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was born on November 24, 1946 in Burlington, Vermont. He became one of America's most infamous serial killers. Bundy kidnapped, raped, and murdered many young women in the 1970s. After years of denial, He confessed to 30 murders in 7 states. His actual number of victims is still unknown. Bundy used various tricks to lure his victims. He often pretended to be injured or posed as an authority figure. Once he had his victim, he would bludgeon her and take her to a secluded spot. There, he would sexually assault and kill her. He was known for revisiting the bodies of his victims, sometimes performing sex acts on them until they were too decomposed. In 1975, Bundy was arrested in Utah for kidnapping and attempted assault. This arrest connected him to many other unsolved murders. But during a court appearance in 1977, Bundy escaped by jumping from a courthouse window. He fled into the mountains, surviving by stealing food and supplies from cabins. After 6 days, he was recaptured near Aspen. This escape showed his cunning and determination to avoid capture. In 1977, Ted Bundy was back in jail in Glenwood Springs. He had ignored advice from his friends and legal advisors to stay put. The case against him was falling apart, with pretrial motions often resolving in his favor. Despite this, Bundy decided to escape again. He got a detailed floor plan of the jail and a hacksaw blade from other inmates. Over 6 months, visitors, especially Carol Ann Boone, smuggled in $500 for him. At night, while other prisoners showered, Bundy sawed a hole in his cell's ceiling and explored the crawlspace above. Despite reports of movement in the ceiling, no investigation happened. By late 1977, Bundy's trial was a big deal in Aspen. He requested a venue change to Denver, but it was moved to Colorado Springs instead. On December 30th, Bundy took advantage of the jail's low staffing. He created a dummy in his bed, climbed into the crawlspace, broke into the chief jailer's apartment, changed clothes, and walked out the front door. He stole a car and drove east, but the car broke down. A motorist gave him a ride to Vail, and he caught a bus to Denver, then flew to Chicago. His escape was not discovered until 17 hours later. From Chicago, Bundy traveled to Ann Arbor, Michigan. He stayed briefly before stealing a car and driving to Atlanta, then taking a bus to Tallahassee, Florida. In Tallahassee, he rented a room under a false name. Initially, he tried to live honestly, but quickly reverted to his old habits. He stole from women's wallets in grocery stores. On February 12th, Bundy stole a car and fled Tallahassee. He was arrested in Pensacola 3 days later. The police found stolen IDs, credit cards, and other evidence in the car. Bundy was eventually convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death. His trial was highly publicized and marked by Bundy's attempts to control his defense. His last words were to give his love to his family and friends. Also, his brain showed no abnormalities. Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh was an American domestic terrorist who carried out the Oklahoma City bombing on April 19, 1995. McVeigh was born on April 23, 1968, in Lockport, New York. He served in the United States Army during the Gulf War and became radicalized by anti-government beliefs. He sought revenge for the 1993 Waco siege and the 1992 Ruby Ridge incident, expressing strong disapproval of federal agencies like the ATF and FBI. He hoped his actions would inspire a revolution against the federal government. Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols built a bomb using 5,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate and nitromethane. On April 19, 1995, McVeigh drove a rented Ryder truck carrying the bomb to the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. He lit a 2-minute fuse and parked the truck in front of the building. At 9:02 a.m., the bomb exploded, destroying the north half of the building. The explosion killed 168 people, including 19 children, and injured 684 others. McVeigh claimed he did not know about the daycare center in the building, though Nichols said they were aware and did not care. The blast damaged more than 300 buildings in Oklahoma City. Over 12,000 volunteers and rescue workers participated in the aftermath. McVeigh was arrested shortly after the bombing when a state trooper stopped him for driving without a license plate and found an illegal firearm. On August 10, 1995, McVeigh was indicted on 11 federal counts, including conspiracy and use of a weapon of mass destruction. He was found guilty on all counts on June 2, 1997. After 1999, Timothy McVeigh was held on federal death row at USP Terre Haute in Indiana. He chose the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley as his final written statement. Just before his execution, he declined to make a final statement. Jay Sawyer, a relative of one of the victims, noted that McVeigh got the final word without speaking. Larry Witcher, whose brother died in the bombing, described McVeigh as having a defiant and expressionless stare, as if he would repeat his actions if he could. McVeigh was executed by lethal injection at 7:14 a.m. on June 11, 2001, becoming the first federal prisoner to be executed since 1963. President Bill Clinton signed legislation in 1997 to bar McVeigh and other veterans convicted of capital crimes from being buried in military cemeteries. McVeigh's body was cremated and his ashes were given to his lawyer, who kept their final destination secret. McVeigh had considered having his ashes dropped at the bombing site, but decided against it. He had also expressed a willingness to donate his organs, but prison regulations prohibited it. Psychiatrist John Smith concluded that McVeigh was a person who had let rage build up inside him until he lashed out violently. McVeigh's IQ was assessed at 1-26. In the end, make sure to give this video a like. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button while you're down there. See you in the next video.